The electorate of Newcastle, as the name implies, centres on the main industrial and population centre of the region. It extends from New Lambton, Broadmeadow and Merriweather in the south to the north arm of the Hunter River and includes the strip of Hexham, Taro and Beresfield. 70,430 voters are on the roll, and Newcastle is the only electorate to have suffered a drop in population since the last poll in 1980. The numbers are down by 850. 7 candidates, including 2 independents, have nominated in an effort to replace the retiring member, Labour's Charlie Jones. Going on voting trends in the past, there's no doubt that the new endorsed ALP candidate, Alan Morris, will be elected. He's the younger brother of the member for Shortland, Mr Peter Morris. Alan Morris lives in Cooks Hill and is married with 2 children. He's a self-employed computer consultant, but is better known publicly as an alderman on Newcastle City Council. Mr Morris's campaigning has been under the direction of no less a person than the Lord Mayor, Alderman Joy Cummings, a party colleague. Mr Morris sees the plight of the steelworks as the major election issue here.
In speaking to the people of Newcastle, I'd like them to put foremost in their mind the problems of Newcastle in terms of our steel industry and as symptomatic of the problems of Australia, of a government that's ignored a national disaster, that hasn't bothered to come and look, that doesn't seem to care much about what's happening in our manufacturing fields. But not just that, but think about our medical system, think about our pensioners, think about our unemployed, because the Labor Party in national government offers them all some cause for hope. It offers them all a future. We believe in Australia's future and we're prepared to invest in it. As your member of the Hawke government in Canberra, I promise a new deal for Newcastle, and I'd ask you to follow our How to Vote ticket on March the 5th.
Well, what is the new deal? Labor's been accused in the past of being too complacent about it.
No, I think, in fact, Newcastle is, and cities like Newcastle, are fundamental to Labor philosophies. Our philosophy is and very much involved and very much part of the industrial manufacturing workforce and movements. Without places like Newcastle, the Labor Party couldn't exist philosophically, and they're the places that will benefit the most from the Labor Party government.
The endorsed Liberal candidate in Newcastle is 68-year-old Mr Stan Hayward. Mr Hayward grew up in Cooks Hill and New Lambton, but moved to Sydney when he became an electrical engineer with the State Electricity Commission. He retired 8 years ago and moved back to Newcastle, where he became the president of the Ratepayers and Residents Group. This led to his being a candidate for the Newcastle City Council in 1977. Mr Hayward says Newcastle suffers from the fact that it's a Labor stronghold.
As a member of a new Liberal federal government, I believe I would have the ear of the Prime Minister and his ministers, and I would ensure that the already mentioned expansion of the Williamtown RAF base would progress and all contracts would be let in such a way that it would maximise the utilisation of both companies and labour of the Newcastle and Hunter Valley. In addition, I feel that I can ensure that the construction of the National Highway, which is in progress, coming down the western side of the lake, would progress and be completed on time by 1988. This would be another big support for Newcastle.
Now, the economy has been mentioned as the big issue of this election. Have you any thoughts there?
The economy is the big issue, and unless we get control of the economy, I'm afraid businesses like BHP and similar businesses will find it very, very difficult to improve their work position.
The Australian Democrats have endorsed 28-year-old Wayne Jarman as their candidate in Newcastle. Mr Jarman lives at Edgeworth with his wife and small daughter. He grew up in Wickham. Mr Jarman is an engineering technician at the BHP Steelworks and is doing an engineering degree at the university. He says he's standing because he likes the idea of a prominent third party working to keep the Liberals and Labor in line.
I want to run for a safe seat like Newcastle for the very fact that it is a safe seat. Safe seats are neglected seats. We've seen that in Newcastle. It's in our parliamentary system, it's a swinging seat that gets the cream. You only have to look as far as Carrington Slipways to see 100 people out of work because an order for a ship went to a Queensland swinging seat instead of to a safe seat like Newcastle. I know the people of Newcastle. I've got a Labor-style background. I'm born and bred in Wickham. My father was a wharf labourer. I know these people aren't going to swing all the way to the Liberal Party. that these people will swing because they're sick and tired of their do-nothing wooden duck parliamentarians. And we've got wooden duck parliamentarians both state and federally. And I want to oppose these people. I want to make Newcastle a swinging seat for the benefit of Newcastle.
As in previous elections, the Communist Party of Australia is standing Mr Darryl Dawson as a candidate in Newcastle. Mr Dawson is aged 52 and is employed as a security officer. He sees the establishment of long-term job creation programs as a priority, along with the survival of the Newcastle Steelworks.
Well, we're standing in this election because we believe we have alternative policies that will not be put by the other parties. We don't expect to be elected, of course, but we have policies and ideas and proposals that the other parties will not be putting. For example, I do want to make it known that the Communist Party is an independent party. It's independent from any external influences, that we determine our own policies and pursue our own organisation here in the customs and traditions of the Australian people.
The Socialist Workers' Party is fielding a candidate in Newcastle. He's 30-year-old Jeff Payne, a rigger at the BHP, who has a young family at home in Carrington. Mr Payne is a member of the Federated Ironworkers Association and last year stood on the Militant Action Campaign ticket for the position of Newcastle Branch Secretary of the FIA. This is also his second federal election.
If, by some chance, Fraser gets back in, then working people in this country and small farmers will be bled white because this economic crisis is going to get worse. It's the worst yet so far since the 1930s. Now, the reason why we're standing in the elections is because we don't think the Labor Party is putting up a strong enough alternative to the Liberals. We don't think the Labor Party, which should represent working people, is doing enough. What we think the Labor Party should be doing is fighting for real socialist alternatives that would really be in the interests of the people who vote for them.
Two independents make up the big field of 7 in this electorate. They are Cambridge Hotel licensee in Newcastle West, Mr Brian McDermott, and retired Carrington small businessman Mr Frank Blafari. Mr Blafari says party politics divide the community and we need cooperation now more than ever before.
I can see too many things in the papers, too many people out of work, and too many people go broke in small businesses. So I decided to give her a go. I paid my $100 and I want to fight for the people, which I believe people should get fair go because this is a rich country and it's big enough for everybody. I think that we all should stick together and make the best of this country because all the best of this country is going overseas and overseas is getting the cream and if we don't look for ourselves, we'll finish up with an empty bowl.
The other independent, Brian McDermott, is aged 31, says he has no interest in politics but is motivated by what he describes as the general apathy.
We've looked at everybody, said it's a very strong Labor town. There's nothing seems to be happening around the area. I've looked around, just around in the Newcastle West area. You look at the brewery side over the road's finished. You look at the store, it's gone. There seems to be nothing stimulating in this town. Nobody seems to want to have a go. Although, well, if it's Labor's got the town saying up that much, why not let a few other people have a go and give it a try? So I thought, well, maybe it's time for an independent in this town of Newcastle.
Our final electorate tonight is Hunter, another blue ribbon Labor seat, understandably, as it centres on the coalfields. It includes Cessnock and Curry and edges into the Newcastle suburbs as far as Wallsend and Cardiff. The western shore of Lake Macquarie is its eastern boundary, and to the south it ends at Ourimbah. The sitting member is Bob Brown, who was endorsed by the ALP on the retirement of Bert James in 1980. Mr Brown is 49, married with a son and a daughter, and lives at Curry. He's a former Mayor of Cessnock and New South Wales parliamentarian for the seat of the same name. Mr Brown is also a former Deputy Headmaster of Curry High School. With a Bachelor of Economics, he's written 2 textbooks on that subject currently in use in schools. Bob Brown sees the survival of the Newcastle Steelworks as an important election issue.
There are very many major local issues, and particularly important, of course, is the question of the future of the BHP and the steel industry in Australia. We've given a very clear assurance that we will be ensuring the continuation of an Australian steel industry. But in addition to that, there are the much wider national issues. We have very significant economic policies to put into place. They're going to have the effect of stopping the deterioration in the Australian economy and bringing about a reversal. Growth will start to take place as a result of us putting into place the economic policies that we have at this stage.
Carrying the flag for the Liberals in Hunter is James White. Mr White has been the president of the Curry-Cessnock branch of the Liberal Party for the past 3 years. He's spent all his life in the coalfields region, being born at Kitchener just outside Cessnock. Now he's a grazier and estate agent with an office at Weston. Jim White has 2 grown-up children and a grandchild. He sees the stimulation of employment prospects in the coalfields region as a vital job for the area's representative.
Well, being a Labor entrenched area, we find that the elected member does not work in this area. We have a massive unemployment and a shortfall in industry in this area. We have to sell the area and bring in more entrepreneurs, business entrepreneurs who are prepared to employ people. This would be mop up the unemployment, particularly among the young people, and we would make a big influx or into the unemployed situation.
The Australian Democrats are running candidates in all our 6 electorates, and completing the team in Hunter is Miss Lynn Wilson. Miss Wilson, aged 38, is a freelance photographer at Morisset, but she's also studying real estate and journalism. Miss Wilson says she first became interested in the Democrats during the turmoil of the mid-70s. She joined the party in 1977 because she believes it to be a group backing the citizens of our country as a whole.
It's a safe seat, and the people of this area need someone to represent them. The Australian Democrats is a citizens' party, and therefore will represent the people of this area and not just follow a party line or vested interests. Such as roads, for instance, in this area have been in appalling condition for some time. There needs to be federal money coming back to this area so that the roads can be maintained. The steel industry, Senator Mason had a proposal for a gas pipeline from the northwest shelf through to the eastern states, which would have provided work for construction workers and would have perhaps prevented layoffs in the steel industry. The health care facilities in this region have been neglected for a vast number of years, require a lot of funding, and education, again, is a federal responsibility as well as a state responsibility. Our schools are overcrowded and we need more money for schools.